Imagine waking up every morning knowing the ocean surrounds you, but you'll never touch it again, that you can see the city across the bay, the lights, the cars, the free people, but you'll never reach it, that every day is identical to the one before, and the next, and the one coming in 10 years. No escape, no silence, no hope. Welcome to Alcatraz. The year is 1930, and today you're going to live as if you were locked inside. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a warning. A cold stone rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by currents so violent they could drag a man under in seconds. The water freezing, the wind constant, the sound of waves crashing against concrete walls day and night without pause. From a distance it looked like a fortress, buildings of brick and cement rising above the sea like a promise of punishment. Small windows, guard towers pointing toward the water, thick walls that never let enough light through. When you arrived on the island, handcuffed, chained, surrounded by armed guards, the first thing you felt was the cold, not just on your skin, in your chest, in your bones, a cold you knew would never leave you. And then came the silence, a heavy silence, interrupted only by metal, doors closing, chains dragging, footsteps on stone. The ocean roared outside, but inside reigned a deafening emptiness. This wasn't rehabilitation, this was burial alive. Before we continue, if this content grabs you, subscribe. We reconstruct with artificial intelligence the darkest, most brutal and forgotten places in history. And leave me a comment. Where are you watching this from? And what place from the past do you want us to reconstruct next? Now let's go inside. In the 1930s, Alcatraz became what the government called escape-proof. It wasn't the first federal prison, but it was designed for one purpose: to break the men other prisons couldn't hold. Gangsters, murderers, bank robbers who had escaped before, men whose names filled newspapers, men the public wanted to forget. The rules were simple: maximum security, minimum privilege, total control. No newspapers, no radio, almost no contact with the outside world. Letters were censored. Visits were rare, separated by glass, limited to brief moments where words felt hollow. You could see your family age through thick barriers, knowing you'd never hold them again. The island held around 260 men at any time. Each one knew why they were there, and each one knew the odds of leaving alive. Your day began before dawn. A bell rang through the cell blocks, sharp, metallic, deliberate. You didn't wake gradually. You were pulled from sleep by sound designed to jolt the nervous system. 5:30 in the morning, every morning, for years. The cells opened with a mechanical clang that echoed down the corridors, hundreds of doors unlocking at once, synchronized like a machine. You had minutes to dress, make your bed with military precision, stand ready for count. The guards walked past each cell, marking clipboards. You stood still, silent. If your bed wasn't perfect, if a corner of the blanket sagged, you'd hear about it. Punishment in Alcatraz wasn't dramatic. It was administrative, cold, efficient. Then came breakfast. You walked in single file down narrow hallways painted in pale green and gray. The dining hall could hold all the inmates at once, but it felt smaller than it was. Long metal tables, benches bolted to the floor, guards stationed along the walls with rifles, watching every movement. The food was plain but sufficient: oatmeal, bread, coffee that tasted like metal. You ate in near silence. Talking was allowed, but barely. The atmosphere discouraged conversation. You learned quickly that every word could be heard, every gesture noted. After breakfast, work assignments. Some men went to the laundry, others to the carpentry shop, the tailor room, or the industries building where they made furniture and clothing. Work wasn't optional. It filled the hours. It gave structure to time that otherwise stretched into madness. But the work was monotonous, repetitive. You folded the same sheets, cut the same wood, sewed the same seams, day after day, week after week. The only break from routine was the knowledge that routine would never change. Your cell measured 5 feet by 9 feet, barely larger than a coffin standing upright. Inside, a metal cot with a thin mattress, a small sink, a toilet without a seat, a fold-down table, a single shelf. That was your world. Everything you owned fit on that shelf. A few books from the prison library if you were lucky. Letters you'd read so many times the paper wore thin. Photographs that became harder to look at as the years passed. The walls were concrete, cold to the touch even in summer. Some men tried to personalize their cells, a drawing, a carved piece of wood, something to prove they still existed as individuals, but there was no hiding the reality. You lived in a box, and that box was your entire universe. At night, the cold came through the walls. Alcatraz sat in the middle of the bay, and the fog rolled in thick and damp. You could hear it, the low moan of foghorns, the moisture settling on every surface. You wrapped yourself in the thin blanket and tried to sleep, knowing the bell would ring again in a few hours. But the worst part wasn't the size of the cell. It wasn't the cold or the hardness of the bed. It was the isolation of being surrounded by hundreds of men yet feeling completely alone. The psychological torture of Alcatraz was deliberate. You could see San Francisco from the prison. On clear days, you could make out the streets, the buildings, the people moving freely through their lives. You could smell the city when the wind shifted. Restaurants, salt water, freedom. You were less than 2 miles from civilization. You could hear New Year's celebrations drifting across the water, fireworks, music, laughter, and you couldn't reach any of it. That proximity was the cruelest design. Other prisons hid their inmates away in remote locations where the outside world felt distant, almost unreal. But Alcatraz forced you to live with the constant reminder of what you'd lost. Every window was a wound that never healed. Control in Alcatraz wasn't achieved through violence. It was achieved through silence and routine. The silence rule was enforced strictly. You couldn't talk in the corridors. You couldn't talk during counts. You couldn't whistle, hum, or make unnecessary noise. The rule existed to prevent organization, to stop inmates from forming alliances, planning escapes, building any kind of community that might threaten order. The prison wanted you isolated even when surrounded by others. Punishment for breaking rules was swift. The worst offenders went to the hole, solitary confinement in D block, a cell stripped even of the minimal comforts of regular housing. Complete darkness. No sound except your own breathing, no sense of time passing. Men came out of the hole changed, broken. Some never recovered. The human mind wasn't designed for total sensory deprivation. After days or weeks in absolute isolation, reality itself could become unstable. Alcatraz housed some of America's most notorious criminals. Al Capone walked these corridors, though by the time he arrived his power had evaporated. Here he was just another number, another inmate mopping floors and eating oatmeal in silence. George Machine Gun Kelly, Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz, though he never kept birds there. Alvin Karpis, men whose names had once inspired fear, now reduced to a routine of endless sameness. But fame meant nothing inside. The guards treated everyone the same, the cells were identical, the rules applied equally. Alcatraz didn't care who you'd been on the outside. So let me ask you, could you survive this? Could you wake up every day for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, knowing nothing would change? Knowing you'd never make a decision for yourself again? That every moment was controlled, observed, regulated? Leave a comment. Be honest. While you were locked inside Alcatraz, the world outside kept moving. The 1930s brought jazz, cinema, the slow recovery from the Great Depression. Technologies advanced, cities grew, people fell in love, raised families, built lives, and you sat in a cell 5 feet by 9 feet listening to foghorns. Time in Alcatraz didn't pass the way it does in freedom. It moved in circles. The same morning bell, the same breakfast, the same walk to work, the same return to your cell, the same lights out. Psychologists would later understand what this does to the human brain. How repetition without variation erodes the sense of self. How lack of choice destroys motivation. How isolation breeds despair that settles into the bones and never leaves. The men of Alcatraz weren't just serving time. They were being erased day by day, routine by routine, until what remained barely recognized itself in the small mirror above the sink. Today, Alcatraz is a tourist attraction. Thousands of people visit every year, walking through those same corridors, peering into those same cells, taking photographs and buying souvenirs. They stay for an hour, maybe 2. Then they take the ferry back to San Francisco, grateful to leave. But in 1930, there was no ferry back. There was no end time to the tour. You lived it. Every minute, every hour, every year, until your sentence ended, or you died trying to escape. The difference between then and now is the difference between visiting hell and living in it. So here's what you need to understand about Alcatraz. It wasn't designed to torture you physically. It was designed to make you disappear, to take everything that made you human, choice, connection, hope, purpose, and strip it away piece by piece, until all that remained was routine and obedience. The ocean surrounded you, but you'd never swim in it. The city sparkled across the bay, but you'd never walk its streets. The sun rose and set, but you'd never feel it fully on your face. You were alive, but you weren't living. And that was the point. If this reconstruction showed you something you'd never imagined, subscribe. We're bringing history back to life through AI, one forgotten place at a time. Comment below, what historical location should we reconstruct next? A medieval dungeon? A World War II bunker? The Titanic before it sank? Tell me. And remember, the past isn't gone. It's just waiting to be seen again.